Jacob's Quest, and tonight I just got back from watching the newest Blumhouse movie, Women in the Yard, which I had seen trailers of coming up to this, and I was actually really excited for this one because the trailers looked really good and suspenseful, and I was like, oh, it looks like there's something kind of special here. I like what I'm seeing, you know? It's got the iconography, it's got the creepy factor, it seems like a really low budget horror film, which, you know, in horror usually is kind of a good thing, actually. And the other thing is that I hadn't heard anyone talk about it. I've heard no buzz about this movie at all. No one online has ever like really mentioned it at all, which is a little strange because usually when a horror movie is really good, or, you know, at least different, unique, and kind of adds something new, you hear about it. You hear people talk about it. You kind of like, you know, it just becomes like a thing, at least for like a week or so, and I've heard nothing leading up to this, and I was kind of concerned, kind of confused, because I'm like, oh man, the trailers look really good. So let's talk about Woman in the Yard, and obviously I'm going to do non-spoilers first. I'm going to say right now, the whole first half of this movie, even the first 2/3 of this movie, I would say, are really, really solid. Like, you know, I was saying on the drive back, like, this could have been an X-Files episode or an episode of Supernatural or something, with this woman in the yard as the villain, and it would have been like an amazing episode. The whole first half of this, I feel like they build suspense really well. You get to know the characters, you know, you actually, you know, and it's very isolated. You know, it takes place entirely just in this house, in and around this house, and like that's what it is. It's like 4 characters total, and it's just this house, and there's nothing else, you know. So like you get to spend all this time with them, you get to learn their dynamic, especially after something tragic had just happened in their family. And you know, it's this single mom and her 2 kids, and you know, you kind of just get to see how they're all readjusting to their new life situation after the tragic event. And now there's this mysterious woman in a yard who's doing creepy stuff, and as the movie goes on, things get weirder and weirder, and you slowly start to see her do even creepier things. And you know, of course, there's the mystery of it. You don't know why any of this is happening, or how this is happening, or what's going on. And you know, there's a lot of different directions that horror movies tend to go. Some of them explain everything, maybe even too much. Other ones do not give you any kind of answers, and it's incredibly unsatisfying when they do that, you know. So like there's a weird middle ground that you have to reach, and I would say this one, you know, you kind of start to approach the middle ground of like, you get some answers, but you definitely don't get all the explanations. And I don't know, some people are gonna leave a little disappointed, I think, especially when you get to the 3rd act. This movie starts to go from, you know, kind of a weird, like, not sci-fi, but you know, paranormal kind of horror movie where they're dealing with this weird thing, and then it starts to go into psychological horror. You know, it kind of changes genre, and you as the viewer start to get really confused about what's even happening, what am I looking at. You know, and I think it kind of hurts the narrative, you know, like as the story's unfolding, and then you just lose track of what is even happening. You know, like you were following the story so well, and you're trying to like get any kind of piece of information you can, and unfortunately, when they, you know, kind of tell you what's happening, or at least as much as they're going to tell you, it's also kind of all contained within this realm of like, well, you don't have a reliable narrator anymore as to like what's going on, because now we're dealing with psychological horror and everything's unraveling, and I don't know, I don't even know what to think anymore. And then the movie kind of just ends there. It ends on that spot. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like this movie is worth a watch, you know, at least especially when it goes to streaming. It's worth a watch because there's definitely, you know, the majority of the movie I think is really good. It's just that ending that I think is gonna like have people kind of scratching their heads a bit, kind of going like, so it was this, I guess. And we're gonna get into spoilers in a second, but yeah, overall I would say it was a really interesting idea, And and I would love for other movies to have a similar kind of entity like this, because it's a really cool looking thing when they start doing it, like the shadows moving, and it looks really cool, so like I would definitely not mind seeing like other movies give this a shot. But unfortunately, I don't know, the ending's gonna leave people pretty mixed, I would say. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump into some spoilers, okay? As much as spoilers as I can, to try and explain what I think is happening here, as we get into kind of a confusing ending. So here we go. Spoilers. This is your warning. Spoilers. Okay, so basically, what we find out is that the woman in the yard is sort of a metaphor for the mom's suicidal tendencies. Like, I guess after the death of her husband in this car crash, she blamed herself, or maybe she even had those tendencies before the crash. And this lady arrives because she's like, well, you've called me every day, you've wanted this to happen, here I am, today's the day, like that's the thing in the trailer. Basically the lady in the yard, the woman, tries to get the mom to kill herself with a gun. And it feels like all of this was explained really clumsily, because it's not until the third act where, not even just the third act, but like the last 10 minutes, where like, oh, you've always known there was a gun there, you've always known there was like a bullet left in the chamber, only one, just for you, or something, and she tries to get her to pull the trigger on herself. That's the only time the movie seems to introduce this idea that she had suicidal tendencies. Like, we knew she was unhappy in her marriage, and she felt guilty that her husband got in that car crash, or like her husband died while she was the one who was driving, but like the idea that this is a manifestation of her own suicidal thoughts or something is, I don't know, it feels like it just comes out of nowhere. It doesn't feel like the movie earns that at all. It's just like a last minute thing. It's kind of strange. And then the movie does this weird thing where she seemingly gets trapped inside of a mirror world of her reality, because all the clocks and all the text and everything is backwards, so all like the numbers and words and everything is backwards, and she notices this and she's like, oh, this is not real. And then she goes through this sequence where she is reliving or reenacting the events of the movie, but through the eyes of the woman in the yard, so now she's the one who has the sheet pulled over her head, and she's sitting there in the yard, and she's seeing everything from her point of view. And so I don't know if the movie was trying to say like it was her the whole time, but not really, but only kind of, but sort of, but yes, but no. And then it gets really weird when sometimes the woman in the yard, they show her face and she just looks like an actress, just like a different lady, right? But then other times she has like half of a really messed up face, and it's only a couple times where they show her face halfway messed up, and then other times she looks normal. And I guess we're supposed to associate that with the idea that maybe she did end up, at the end of the movie, she does end up pulling the trigger and she does shoot herself, and then that's why the lady in the yard sometimes has a messed up face, maybe. and that's what I mean by, like, the movie doesn't make it very clear what is even supposed to be happening, and the whole suicide thing is just like a last minute like introduction thing, like, oh, by the way, you're suicidal, and that's what I am, kind of, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, it feels like it was really clumsily done. And then the movie ends with, like, hey, if you know anyone who has been having suicidal thoughts, call the hotline number, which, I get, that's always good to include, I guess. But it's like, okay, so that was definitely the theme of the movie then. You included that at the end, so that's definitely what you're trying to, like, get across here as to, like, what the woman in the yard is. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but the kids saw this lady move things with shadow magic, and so she's not just like imaginary, like she is real. And then at certain times it seems like she's after the children, like that was her goal the whole time, even though at the end it's like, oh no, I was just trying to get you to, I don't know, shoot yourself, I guess. It doesn't really add up at the end. That's what I'm trying to say. Like it feels like there was some kind of rewrite, or some kind of like, you know, maybe at one point they were gonna do a twist where she was the woman in the yard, but then they kind of stopped doing that, and then at a different point it was gonna be like, oh well, she's after the kids, and she made some kind of deal where she could go after the kids at a certain point, and that's why today's the day or something. But then they didn't do that either, and it just feels like there was different directions happening, and then they kind of landed on this suicide metaphor kind of thing. I don't know. It was really clumsily done, I think. It didn't really make a lot of sense by the end of it. I don't feel like that, you know, the first half of the movie doesn't feel like that's what this is leading to. It was, she's a metaphor, you get it? Kind of. Yeah, and then the movie ends with her possibly still being in the mirror world, because we see a painting of hers that has an autograph that's backwards, and you're like, oh, it's backwards, so she's still trapped in the place, the shadow mirror world, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know. So yeah, I don't know. That's Woman in the Yard. Man, that first half is so solid. Like, you care about the characters, they do the suspenseful build up, you have so many questions, and it's such a great mystery, and she's so creepy, and they do like the audio on the voice, and like they, you know, like it's just such a good effect, and the shadow stuff really works. And then it all, like, it's like they couldn't decide what they want to do, you know, at the end of it. They couldn't decide how much they want to answer. They couldn't decide how much of any of this made sense, so they're just like, whatever, it's, sure, it's a suicide thing, I guess. Okay. It reminds me a lot of the Babadook by the end of it. Except the Babadook was kind of, it felt like, the Babadook felt like it always knew what it wanted to be. You know, like it knew, like, this is a metaphor for grief and depression and all of that stuff that you know, those monsters you keep bottled up, and you gotta, you know, keep them in check. Like, that's what the Babadook is, you know. And this kind of tried to be that by the end of it, because they even do this thing where they're like, oh, she's gone today, and if she comes back, I'll be ready for her, you know, as if, you know, like, oh, get it, because it's like a thing that's gonna keep coming back, but you learn to deal with it, I guess. But I don't know, it was so clumsily done at that point that I'm like, I guess this is what you landed on. It doesn't, okay. But as a monster, like just as a shadow caster thing, it's a really cool idea, and it looks really cool when they do it. So I don't know, I think it's worth checking out when it's streaming. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about Woman in the Yard. Are you gonna go watch it? Or is this gonna make more sense to you than it does to me? Because I don't know, for me, I'm like, it doesn't feel like you earned to get there, but okay. Anyways, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.